talking heads on television, the commentators in the newspaper have said, you cannot win an election in New Jersey without being personally negative, without doing smear attack ads on the character of your opponent. Now in February when I announced for governor, I said that I knew that this campaign would get into the gutter and that I would not follow my opponents into that gutter. And I told you then, I did not know whether that was a winning strategy or a losing strategy, but I told you it was my strategy and that I had worked too hard, over my life to give away my integrity for any job, not even this one.
From my perspective, we won last night. We had one race that we were engaged in. It was in northern New York. It was at Brace, where a Republican has held the seat since the Civil War. And we won that seat. So from our standpoint, no, a candidate who was victorious, who supports the health care reform, and his remarks last night said this was a victory for the health care reform and other initiatives for the American people. So from our standpoint, we picked up votes last night, one in California and one in New York.
I think that there is a question pregnant in the air in America today, which is Botox psychoactive? Should the FDA run experiments to see the effects of Botox on the female brain? Nancy Lugosi says they won last night when the entire America knows they lost. It wasn't 2-1. Everybody knows this was a repudiation of Obama. Everybody knows that socialism has been stopped in its tracks. Everyone is asking, have the wheels come off Axel's rod? And is America's flirtation with Marxism over? It seems everyone knows this except those on Botox, who are speaking as though nothing happened yesterday. Yesterday's election results were a tsunami against Marxism. The Republican victory in New Jersey alone was a repudiation of Obama's extremist agenda. Just remember who Chris Christie was running against. He was running against Goldman Sachs. He was running against Obama. Obama visited New Jersey 4 or 5 times. Obama put his political capital on the line not only in New Jersey but in Virginia. Of course they're going to come out and say that Obama, it wasn't about Obama, Obama wasn't watching it, blah, blah, blah. What would you expect from a group like this that has basically hijacked America? Would you expect them to say, yes, they're disappointed? Don't be silly. The question for the audience today on the Savage Nation is this. Were the Republican victories in New Jersey and Virginia a repudiation of Obama's extremist agenda? That's what I would like to ask you. I think that that's a simple way to engage this discussion. And if you don't know what we are talking about the Republican victories in New Jersey and Virginia yesterday, the margin of victory in these states, and the insanity of Nancy Lugosi. She's sounding more and more like out of a Bela Lugosi movie. Listen to her again. Listen.
From my perspective, we won last night. We had one race that we were engaged in. It was in northern New York. It was at Brace, where a Republican has held the seat since the Civil War.
We heard this. You know, she's an embarrassment to the Democrat Party. I can only say thank God that Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House, because the longer she is the Speaker of the House for the Democrats, the faster and farther the Democrats will fall by 2010. 1-800-449-8255. Were the Republican victories in New Jersey and Virginia a repudiation of Obama's extremist agenda is the question of the day. And here are some of the notes of the Savage Nation. Do you think America's fling with Marxism is over? You know, it's funny I ask that because when I watched these victories last night, after I got off the air, frankly, I was up very late, because I almost couldn't believe it myself. And I kept saying to myself, it seems to me Marxism has been stopped. Our flirtation with Marxism has come to an end in only 10 months. And one of the key reasons that Democrats were defeated last night, that nobody in the media has been talking about, but you're going to hear it now for the first time on the Savage Nation, is that ACORN was not operational. The reason ACORN was not operational is because they had been exposed by conservatives as a fraudulent criminal organization. Because ACORN's power had been nullified prior to this election, They were unable to deliver the fake votes for the Democrats. There were simply too many people watching for them to pull off a scam this time around. Then look at Chris Christie, who won the governor's race in New Jersey last night. Here's a man who has a sterling record as a U.S. attorney. Here is a man who fought political corruption in possibly the most corrupt state in America. He was even praised for being a good U.S. attorney by John Corzine in 2005. And yet Corzine, with unlimited funds from Goldman Sachs, where he was once CEO, invested $30 million, which is nothing. It's probably a day's pay, impugning Chris Christie's character. In fact, the worst they could dig up on Chris Christie was that he was overweight. Pelosi claiming that last night's election was a victory for the Democrats is beyond comprehension. Axelrod, I watched him this morning, and I tell you the truth, I got to tell you, I can see when people are nakedly embarrassed and or lying. They gulp. Have you ever watched people on television? Have you seen the big gulp that follows the big lie? Axelrod took 4 or 5 giant gulps after claiming that the only important race was the one where the Democrat won. Big gulp, 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 gulp. Were the Republican victories in New Jersey and Virginia a repudiation of Obama's extremist agenda? Have the wheels come off Axel's rod? Is America's flirtation with Marxism over? Let us go to the callers. Let us begin in New York City. Let us begin with Joe. Joe, you're on the Savage Nation.
Michael, good to talk to you. Pelosi is in denial, clearly, and this is a huge, huge boost for independents.
Well, do you think she's in denial, or do you think she actually believes it, owing to the intense use of Botox, which has obviously affected her judgment?
She is a deer in headlights right now, and this is a light at the end of the tunnel for us as conservatives and independents. Would you agree with that?
Jody, did you feel last night that you felt less frightened of this Marxist regime?
Clearly, yes. It was a huge blow to B.O. and his buddies in D.C., yes.
Thank you. There you go. That's how I felt. I really felt it. I felt that America finally stood up to these people, and it's only the beginning. This is going to turn into an avalanche very soon. Wait till 2010. I don't care what they say. This was a repudiation of Obama's extremist agenda. People go and say, well, it wasn't about Obama. What do you mean it wasn't about Obama? If it wasn't about Obama, that's a repudiation of Obama to begin with, because he spent many, many visits out there. If they say, no, Obama had nothing to do with it, they're saying he's ineffectual. Did you ever see it that way? Listen to what I just said to you. The spinmeisters at NBC and CNN are saying, every exit poll said 60% of the people said Obama had nothing to do with this election. Well, wait a minute now. If Obama went to Virginia 4 times or 5 times and New Jersey 5 times, and they say Obama had nothing to do with the election, it means Obama's ineffectual. So one way or the other, it was about Obama. Don't you see that? Also, don't miss my main point, because you didn't hear it anywhere else. One of the primary reasons the people were actually heard from is because the thugs were kept away from the polling booths. The Black Panthers and their truncheons were not there. The acorn thieves were not there. The people themselves were there. Do you get it? Now, the only people who don't understand what this means are the Republicans. The only people who didn't actually get the message, other than Nancy Pelosi, are the Republicans themselves. The only people who are going to continue to rule as though there are no conservatives in America and that the conservative movement has no meaning are the Republicans themselves. They are the biggest. They are actually the biggest impediment we have to taking this nation back. The Republican Party learned nothing from yesterday, is my opinion.